one night you wake up and things happen.
In the industry, it's a darker industry.
Yes. Why do you say what makes it the darkest industry?
I became millionaire overnight.
4-year purani company is taking over a 27-year-old business. What were some challenges associated with that thing?
They'll start cutting you down completely. For me, scaling will not be a problem because I've been doing it for 6-7 years in my life. You have to actually look for people who believe in building with you. आपने partner कोई भी गलत select कर लिया, you're going to be doomed. You're only a villain in somebody else's story. हमें और पैसे की जरूरत थी. I had mortgaged my parents' flat. I got married in 2014. In 2016, I had to go to my in-laws and say, "आपका भी flat दे दो." I would not call that as a mistake. One of the great learnings that I have had, you should know what you don't know.
One of the most stressful situations, which felt like a near-death experience for InfraMarket. How did you manage to get out of this situation?
If InfraMarket doesn't drain me out enough, then the only thing that I aspire is to... I think in the end, it's the game who's playing you and not you who are playing the game.
What was the reason of establishing this in Thane?
The focus is on building business, right? The focus is not on having a great place, a fancy office or a fancy place, right? The focus is business. Like Shravik and I both start our day at 8:30 a.m. Typically, the first meeting starts there. So you really don't want to waste a lot of time in class, right? Plus, you also get the flexibility to reach home early, right? So the 3 hours that an average person would spend in traveling, that 3 hours either is utilized for work or for family, which is both worth it.
And you need to save time. But इसमें talent की दिक्कत नहीं होती?
So yes, I think attracting talent is always challenge when you're young as a company. As you keep establishing your presence in the network, in the business network, right? I think the problem becomes easier. It just gets solved naturally, right? So attracting the top 2 CXOs in my company back in 2020 was the toughest time, right? With every passing year, it's become easier. Right? When you're a young startup or a young company and you want a great professional to come in, please understand that you cannot give him a career. I'm talking is that when you are younger as a company, you cannot offer him his career with your company, right?
Yes.
His career, as a majority of my leaders' career was much larger than my organization's career itself.
How can you do that?
You have to give them an aspiration, a dream that they want to build. It's about connecting that. Invariably, I believe that majority, if not all of my leadership, they are not working as a professional assignment, right? They are working, they are here in InfraMarket because they want to build it. So what happens is there's a difference between being self-employed and being entrepreneur, right? We seldom mix it, right? So if how I look at it, there is entrepreneurship, right? There is self-employment, right? These two are together. So you may have your own business or you may be self-employed, but not necessarily you're an entrepreneur, right? Entrepreneurship is a spirit, right? It's an attitude, which may also come in professionals. So you may have professionals who are working in a company or who are salary paid, but they're entrepreneur by spirit. So idea is you have to look out for entrepreneurs.
And when you say you have to look out for entrepreneurs, what qualities or traits do you see?
I think the first thing, again, it all depends upon where your organization is. Because the experience or the strategy I had back in 2020-21 when I was onboarding leadership is completely different from what it's now.
How has it changed? What was the philosophy back then and what's now?
As I told you, when you're a younger company, right, please understand that you cannot sell them a professional career. If you go and tell them, okay, you are at a X package and I'll give you X plus 30%, X plus 50%, they have got much better revenues which will never be able to match. You have to actually look for people who believe in building with you. Deep inside, maybe they had a dream somewhere in their career that they wanted to build it out. But for whatever reasons, could be personal, could be professional, or could be any reason, they couldn't build it out. So they are going to clinch to you is to somewhere fulfill their dream and your dream. So it's about meeting the right people who have the same dream. So invariably, I have met great folks, right? But the alignment did not match. After walking out of the meeting, I didn't feel that, okay, He's as aspirational as me in building out this thing. And while that person would have been would have had a fantastic profile, right? But he was looking for an assignment. He was looking for another job profile. I was not looking for that. I was not looking for just another professionals, right? A co-founder. I'm looking not in a as in the functionally or the responsibility as the co-founder, while he may not be labeled co-founder because we have become too large for it. But ideally, someone who wants to build it, who's more aspirational, who's gonna build it as much for himself as much for us, right? So I think it's that spark is because what happens is that building up from scratch is really tough. Now imagine that you are at a CXO level or a very one of the top management level in a company. There are a lot of given resources to you in terms of people, in terms of processes, in terms of even capital, in terms of brand, multiple things. And now you have to manage a well lubricated machine. Unlike when you join a startup, you have to make the machine first, align it, get people, get them believing in you, get the processes, even maybe at sometimes fix up as vanilla as even the supply chain and the sales team and the marketing. Get it to a level where it becomes auto function, and then there will be invariable challenges from the industry because the competition is not going to let you survive, right? Why would a competition or a group of competition would let a new entrant come in? Right, survive all those things, and then the real revenues and the profitability will come. Now to survive all this is a different rigor, right? Imagine what would be an inspiration for a 60-year-old professional who has 3 decades of experience to go through all this grind. He's not going to go through all this grind is for InfraMarket. Let's understand. He's going to go through this grind for himself. So you have to value that. You have to respect that. You have to find that partner who believes in bringing an impact to the industry, right? If you cannot find that, right, then you're going to end up betting on the wrong person. It's because when he's going to walk in, a professional walks in, it's default for him to expect a lot of things in places. You as a startup would not have it in places.
You have to do things.
Absolutely, yeah. You're young companies, right? There are companies get built over 2 decades or more. Processes get built over 10 years. ERP implementation for a lot of companies have taken 2 years or more, right? How would you do it in 3-4 years? So, वो जो है ना कि ठीक है यार स्क्रैच से करना है, वो जो है ना कि रोज like something has to drive you every day.
How are you able to convince some of them, and from where did you find this talent? That is more important.
I have always been telling to a lot of my inner circles, right? For a very long time, right? When there used to be so-called interviews with these top guys, right? It was never I was who was taking an interview. I was giving the interview, right? While it was my company, right? And you are a professional. It was my job to come and sell you the dream, right? मैं आपका इंटरव्यू क्या ही लूँ सर आपके पास 2 decades का 3 decades का एक्सपीरियंस है you have built great companies you have a impeccable profile right have done great work have a you are yourself are a brand in the organization in the industry right when you step in you can just make a 50-100 people and all of them let me tell you all of my leaders have invariably built more than 200 people team within 6 months so that's the brand they are to their industry the industry looks up to them इनका इंटरव्यू मैं क्या लूंगा as I told you na I have been an entrepreneur since the age 18 right the spirit so a lot of learnings have been self learnings making a lot of mistakes one of the great learnings that I have had is that you should know what you don't know if you know that you don't know the life becomes easier see not more than 4 years 3 to 4 years back I still have my oldest employees we used to work out of an apartment right because we couldn't even afford a commercial office in Thane. Can you imagine? Like we couldn't afford a commercial office in Thane, so we used to work out of an apartment, made it an office. Even when we raised the first capital from Axel and we were talking about the next round, the investor was zapped to see our office because we were working out of a defunct mall. Because defunct mall में आपको real estate सबसे सस्ता मिलेगा, right? So we come from that background. So when all these learning, what I realized is that there is a natural way that we have developed as an organization that I have developed to build a team. I don't know the maths to it. Maybe you connect, maybe, of course there's something, right? Like as it's, if you have read the book Malcolm Gladwell, Blink, right? There's an insight that you have inside you, right? There is a subconscious thing. So I think there is something which helps me connect. I would really not that I have a secret and I would not like to share. I would obviously like to share everything, all of my experience to all the entrepreneurs around, all the young folks around. But I think one of the most important thing is you have to be truthful, right? It's very important that as a person you are truthful to yourself and truthful to others. Multiple things in life are binary, right? Trust is binary in nature. Either you trust or you don't trust.
There is no halfway.
There is nothing you can say, I
40% trust.
There is 80% trust, right? Integrity is binary. Either you are you have integrity or you don't have. Trust is binary, right? So I think first of all, you have to believe in your leadership team. We work out of building material sector, one of the dirtiest, ugliest sector. Extremely easy to malign someone, right? Extremely easy. There would be stories about everyone, right? Extremely complex businesses, handling localites, handling transporters, logistics, raw material suppliers, handling dealers, suppliers, multiple things, right? So it's got a har jagah se fata pada rahega, right? It's not like a clean business. It's not like a sexy tech business, right? You get a bunch of techies, make some nice coding, and tech is the product, right? For multiple startups, tech is the product. In this industry to survive, right? You have to first understand, when you partner with someone, the most important part is trust. Right. I think a lot of principles of life partner goes with work partners.
How do you establish trust?
It is obviously you have to take the first step. You cannot expect others to trust you. See, it always begins with me, right? I have to take the first step. I have to take the leap of faith. If I come across somebody, I have to do enough diligence, bet on my intelligence on getting it, bet on my luck, bet on my destiny, and inevitably work with him with an under rule simple tone. I believe you. Unless I am proved wrong. Trust. Right? And please understand, I think for us all these things understanding came much earlier. I think a lot of that credit I also give to my co-founder Shavik. I think of all of us, he's the guy who's ahead of his time. I really believe him. I really look up to him in many things. So I think a lot of it for me was easier is because I had a founder who was very clear on his concepts, right? Very clear, and I actually adapted a lot from him. So the idea is that when these folks come in, you have to understand that they are also human beings. They're also professionals. While they may have the best of the intent, they'll make mistakes.
Right.
But the fact remains, even we have made mistakes. How is it different? See, you're building organizations which are going to stay beyond you, right? So the base building is extremely important, right? So the way you forgive yourself, you have to learn to forgive others. And most important, learn mistakes and don't repeat mistakes, right? So let's understand कि एक startup entrepreneurs में typically सबसे ज़्यादा क्या होता है? Enthusiasm, aspiration, persistence,
energy,
unparalleled होता है, unparalleled. What happens is typically I realize is that enthusiasm multiplied by persistence, multiplied by aspiration, and then you top it up. All this you raise it exponentially. इसको bracket में exponentially आप resources डाल दो, right? It's an immense positive energy,
right?
Right, and that's sometimes may overshadow realism, right? होता है, ठीक है? I think the way we are realistic today on any of the projects, we were not like this 2 years back, and we were definitely not like this 4 years back, right? Because you really believe you will do everything, right? And what happens out of 10, even if you go 7 times right, the outcome is so large that you're able to overcome the 3 times losses or the 3 times wrong mistakes you have done, right? But this was great in 100 to 10,000 story. After 1,000, the room of making that mistakes is lesser because the magnitude on either side, on right and wrong, is very large. When you become large corporations, you have multiple stakeholders watching you. When you are young, a lot of things is forgiven, right? For example, when we were young as teenagers, right? The mistake that you would do, you cannot do that as an adult.
Right.
And the mistake that you can do as an adult, you cannot do it after you have, when you're in your 40s and you have 2 children. You just cannot do those mistakes, right? That's how life is, right? You're expected to be more realistic. You have to be expected to be having more gravity on the real situation. So I think we have made that mistakes, right? And
give me a couple of mistakes, recent ones, big ones. And what were the learnings?
I think so. 2 things. One is you do mistakes where you are completely inexperienced, and second is you do mistakes that when you know it and you have conceptually gone wrong, right? One of the mistakes I think in the businesses that would have recently done is underestimating the power of supply chain. I think this was a conceptual mistake, right? We were so sales focused as a company, so much inclined towards revenue and sales acquisition that we underestimated at how important is supply chain at scale. When you're building a business for a 200 crore revenue, right, the supply chain is very different. When you're building a business for 1,000 crore revenue, the supply chain is extremely different. So one of the vertical that we were building, right, as I told you, our DNA has been a sales and marketing focus, right, acquisitions, revenue. You have to also understand one concept of revenue, that it's very difficult to start the engine. But once it starts and it gets into autopilot, it's very difficult to
Stop it.
right? And if you try to put brakes, then you're going to have an extreme pushback from the industry.
क्या दिक्कत आती है?
नहीं यार, आप एक बात मैं आपको ना, आप let's say you have hired hundreds of people in sales team, right? Now they are going, you're pushing them every day on the getting the sales. They will struggle to get sales till a time, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. At some point they'll start throwing numbers. And तब अगर आपका supply chain collapse हो गया, so your first is your team is extremely demotivated. Second, आपने इतना जो ज्ञान दिया उनको 6 महीना, you have come on your knees now because you're not able to supply. Third, the verbatim you have built to the industry has completely collapsed. Because how would a dealer or a consumer or any of your end consumer look at it? I follow up किए, माल दिया, सप्लाई नहीं कर पाए, राइट? ये कंपनी का सप्लाई चेन फिक्स नहीं है, ये स्टार्टअप है, ये बबल है. So you have to also understand startups are most prone to any of the good news or bad news.
हाँ.
समझ रहे हैं? मतलब आप गलतियां सब करते हैं, मल्टीपल सब चीज होती है, पर अगर एक गलती एक बिजनेस हाउस करता है या एक इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट करता है और वही चीज एक स्टार्टअप करता है, आई थिंक जनरली
स्टार्टअप की ज्यादा हाईलाइट होती है.
of course, as in the news around startups is always much more. It's about an 8 or 10 years journey, I feel, where people will actually start accepting you as a part of the entire ecosystem or a part of the impact that you're trying to build in certain product category. It's an 8 to 10 year story where you will be one among them, right? Till that you're going to face judgment.
दो तीन चीजें. सो आप जो मिस्टेक्स वाली बात करते थे उस पर एक बार दोबारा आते हैं. व्हाट वेंट रॉन्ग इन द सप्लाई?
Again, so क्या होता है ना, आप great theories पढ़ेंगे business की,
हाँ.
right? So ideally what has happened when the supply is fragmented and you concentrate demand, right? You should make money, right? Because there's a set of segmented suppliers who are not able to reach the demand point. You are controlling demand point, so you'll always buy from the fragmented sellers and do it, right? Amazon is a great example. In e-commerce, if you look at the market sizing and you look at the branded players share, it's not more than 25-30%. Right? And there are building material where it's much lesser. So as I told you that till the time it's a small size business, supply chain will not collapse. Right? Because आपका demand है एक minimalistic है, एक थोड़ा सा है जहाँ पे आपके supply बहुत है. But if you look at their capacity, आपको लगेगा just a random number. मैं आपसे बोल रहा कि कोई category इसमें को लगता है 200 को मैंने supply generate कर दी है, supply chain generate की है to fulfill a 700 to 800 crore products. That value I can reach. मेरी supply chain का capacity है. 200 करोड़ पे कोलैप्स नहीं करेगा बिकॉज 700 का सप्लाई है, 200 का है. एज यू विल स्टार्ट इंचिंग अप, इट विल स्टार्ट कोलैप्सिंग, राइट? मेनी ऑफ देम में आल्सो फील यार कर क्या रहे यार, इन लो मतलब इन लो एट द एंड फाइट लेवल खुद का करते हैं, प्रोडक्ट तो मैं बना रहा हूँ, हाँ. ये मेरा है, ऐसा है, मैं भी करूंगा. सम ऑफ देम में आल्सो गेट सम इन्वेस्टर्स. सो इट्स वेरी डायनामिक. देयर वर्ल्ड एंड देयर entire ecosystem is so dynamic that it will have an impact on you. Now what happens is you have invested in a sales team, you have now invested in a brand, you have a network, you have an image to protect. Now you will go all out to protect, but you cannot protect it.
Why?
Because you depend upon their ecosystem, and their ecosystem will keep changing. Everybody, if I have 10 suppliers, I now have to manage 10 ecosystem. See, if it's my supply or my manufacturing, I have to only manage one ecosystem. Now it's 10 people having 10 different problems. किसी का पर्सनल प्रॉब्लम है, किसी का पार्टनर से प्रॉब्लम हो गया, किसी को कोई और अपॉर्चुनिटी आ गई, किसी को बेटर रेट मिल गया, किसी को बिजनेस चेंज करना है, किसी ने बाजू में प्लॉट ले लिया, उसको पैसे की जरूरत है. मैं ये सब कहां तक मैनेज करूंगा? सो आई एम नॉट एबल टू प्लान थ्रू इट. My problem is I cannot depend upon a supply chain is because their ecosystem is so dynamic that I cannot plan through it.
So then how did you change your business model?
Obviously, we got into manufacturing. So today, if you see in last one and a half year, I underestimated supply chain. One mistake, right? As if you ask me, conceptual. I also underestimated the time to establish the newer supply chain. Right. So I think rigorously, all of my leaders, we are working since last 1.5 years to only fix supply chain, and the only solution we feel is manufacturing.
Own the supply chain.
Theoretically, you have to own the entire manufacturing. You may choose that. So in many cases, we are asset-light manufacturing. That means somebody owns the assets, but we are running it, or they run it completely for me. And there are some places where we have put our own manufacturing, but you have to own the entire manufacturing piece. So wherever we are associated, in majority of the cases, right now, that facility is only producing for me.
Right.
So what happens is, to set up that, it's a long time. Then what will happen is, let's say you are having an excess capacity, you have put up a plant, and I'm telling you, hey, I want to buy everything. So you'll ask me for a minimum guarantee. Now, obviously, my demand has already collapsed. And I have to also give you a minimum guarantee, because that's the only way I think we can work. So what will happen now, unless I don't create that demand, I'm not having the best unit economics.
Right.
Right? So it was, I think, a theoretical or a conceptual mistake I did as an entrepreneur in underestimating. Of course, I knew supply chain is that, कि supply chain important है, पर उसका collapse इतना बड़ा impact आएगा, ये मैंने underestimate किया था, जो मेरी गलती थी. Thankfully, I realized it very soon. Conceptual mistake, what I told about you.
And then the experience.
Is the inexperience. So I think we recently took up a majority equity in one of the listed companies. Our inexperience to handle a public listed company and the nuances around that, I would not call that as a mistake, right? Because I didn't know the process. I didn't know. It was the first time for us. We had the best of the lawyers, we had the best of the bankers, but today, at hindsight, I feel it could have been better managed.
क्या गलती करी थी आपने while managing a publicly listed company?
I think it's not, as I told you, it's not गलती मैं बोलूँगा, but my inexperience. I think just the management of the whole thing. I think the entire thing, it's not. I think because it's a public listed company, there's a less data, or I can talk about it. But I think that today, I'm very sure if next time there's any public listed company, that if we happen to acquire any, right, it will be much better than what we did in the past. But that is not my mistake. That is my inexperience to handle multiple shareholders, to handle large shareholders, to handle public sentiment in general. So I think a lot of these things you keep learning, but I think that is how life is, right? You will not know everything at first go. You will make mistakes, you will learn. What's very important is that you don't repeat the mistakes.
Right.
That's extremely important. As a businessman, क्या होता है? आपके पास 100 रुपए है. अब आपको ये देखना है वो 100 रुपए से मैं सबसे ज्यादा किधर कमा सकता हूँ.
ठीक है.
As you get better, you will keep drifting. Everybody does it. So did I. तो इसमें कोई यूरेका मोमेंट नहीं था.
ठीक है.
कॉमन सेंस मोमेंट था कि भाई 100 ही रुपया है, तो 100 रुपया वहां डालते हैं जहाँ पे सबसे ज्यादा पैसा है.
रिटर्न है.
बराबर. तो I drifted to concrete. At the same time, during this time, Shobik had, after completing his chartered accountancy, he was working with an infra company on the finance side of it, right? So he was seeing the problem of fragmentation in supply from other side as a client angle. I was seeing it from a supplier angle, right? So since 2012 until 2016, multiple times Shobik and me used to meet, discuss. I used to tell him, but of course, he was young then. He was already a chartered accountant. He could obviously look in for in his mind, maybe he would have had better career prospects to it. But हम ये discuss करते रहते थे. Eventually discuss करते, I could have numbers which I could show it to him.
Like
कि 2012 में ये कमाए, 2013 में ये कमाए, ऐसा scope है वगैरह. And there is, like, if we keep doing it, there is a revenue model I'm stitching around, and we could do, but I was doing at a proprietary level. Again, the theme behind there was making money. ठीक है, वहाँ पे कोई ऐसा इतनी बड़ी कंपनी बना देंगे, ये कर लेंगे, जमीन आसमान एक कर देंगे, कुछ भी वो था ही नहीं इनसाइट, जीरो इनसाइट था हमें. ठीक है, we just came in together in 2016 to have a better business. That's all.
कौन-कौन सी टॉप 3 ऐसी प्रॉब्लम्स थी जो आपने डीलर साइड पे देखी, और कौन-कौन सी मेजर 3 प्रॉब्लम्स थी जो शोविक ने क्लाइंट साइड पे देखी इस बिजनेस के अंदर?
I think dealers could not, manufacturers could not reach the end client. I think there was a lot of opaqueness, I would say, between demand reaching supply or supply reaching demand, right? So a lot of small manufacturers who could not crack the big customers. From a customer angle, lot of large customers who is not getting a unified standardized product.
कुछ इनको एसीसी का लेना पड़ेगा, कुछ इनको दूसरे का लेना पड़ेगा.
No, या तो ये पूरा एसीसी का ले ले,
हाँ,
या ये पूरा अल्ट्राटेक का ले ले. पर अगर एसीसी का, so at that point of time there were only few branded players.
ठीक है.
Right, but I'm telling you, 90% of the product category is with fragmented and unbranded players. ये वहां पहुंच नहीं सकते कस्टमर के पास for their own logistics problem, their for own communication और representation
छोटे
problem.
लोग हैं।
हाँ छोटे, and plus also from mindset भी होता है कभी कभी, right? You're happy what you're doing, right? So in last 10 years things have also drastically changed. वहाँ पे ऐसा था कि यार manufacturer is making his manufacturing margin, he is happy, भाई ठीक है middleman लेके जा रहा है माल बेच दे,
कहीं बेच रहा है, मेरे को बेचने का
right? So I
टेंशन नहीं।
had an opportunity there where I could crack all the large customers. 2012 until 2000 I kept doing it at a proper level. I think in 2015 and Shavik made a mind that okay he'll come in full time, but because he was in in the finance profile, of course he had certain commitments which took him time in, and we started form the company in mid-July 2016. Again, there also we were very clear. We could see a potential that we can make more money as business owners, not as entrepreneurs, right? What I feel is a very different concept. मतलब सौविक ने सोचा होगा यार कोई जॉब वॉब करूंगा 2-3 लाख रुपए कमाऊंगा, ठीक है, मैं तो एक काम करता हूँ यहाँ पे 5-6 लाख कमाई, ये कर लेते हैं। मैंने भी ऐसा ही कुछ सोचा होगा उस समय, ऐसा ही सोचा था। 16, 17, 17, 18, we kept doing the business and the pie started growing, right? We were bootstrapped. हमें और पैसे की जरूरत थी, पैसे कम थे, so we started loaning the money, right? There was a time when I remember I had mortgaged my parents' flat. Shavik had mortgaged his parents' flat. We had put all our savings in. I got married in 2014. In 2016, I had to go to my in-laws and say, आपका भी flat दे दो, right? वो भी मेरे को चाहिए। हमने किया भी वो, because we believed in the business and it's simple. See, आपका business अगर trading aggregation का business है, so your earning will increase if your base capital increase. अगर आप 100 रुपए 15% कमा रहे हो तो आप 200 पे भी 15% कमाओगे, पर वो 30 रुपए हो जाएगा।
हाँ।
300 पे वो 45 रुपए हो जाएगा।
कैपिटल बढ़ाना पड़ेगा।
तो 16, 17, 17, 18 we didn't hit any of the venture capitalist world, right? We grew the books. 2016 my revenue was 12.5 crores. March 2017 was 12.5 crores. March 2018 was 20.5 crores. So even in this model, we are growing like 100% year on year with bootstrap money.
इसमें what was the business model that you stitched for the 12 crores of
I think
revenue?
by 2018 we had much evolved in the business model where demand creation was in my hand. As in I was demand create.
कैसे करते थे आप demand create?
For a very long time, for donkeys years, I've been doing sales. Go meet the client, pursue the client, tell him, pitch karo, follow up karo, wo karo. But yes, on the supply chain, we started working unique things. So what I said is when I started, I wanted to, first I used to just simply buy material and sell it. Then I elevated myself where I used to tell the manufacturer, I'll supply you all the raw materials. You make it and give it to me.
Why would he agree to, get materials from you?
Because now I have created enough demand. राइट एंड आई एम इन अ डिमांडिंग पोजीशन। मेरे पास डिमांड है, मेरे पास ऑर्डर है, मेरे को अगर आपको मुझे माल देना है तो आपको रॉ मटेरियल मुझसे लेना होगा। मेरे रॉ मटेरियल लो, आप आपका मिक्सिंग चार्जेस ले लो, मुझे दे दो। सो दैट वाज द मॉडल। सो दैट व्हाट हैपेंड नाउ, फॉर एवरी 100 रुपीज रेवेन्यू आई वाज मेकिंग ट्वाइस द मार्जिन।
और आपका क्वालिटी पे भी कंट्रोल हो गया क्योंकि आप रॉ मटेरियल उसको दे रहे हो।
आई वुड से डिसेंट था। मैं अगेन टू बी ऑनेस्ट कुछ बहुत ज्यादा रॉकेट साइंस मैंने किया नहीं था।
ठीक है।
बट बूटस्ट्रैप ना, पैसा कमाना जरूरी है, क्वालिटी और ब्रांड थोड़ी उस समय कोई सोचता है, पैसा कितना कमा रहे वो इंपॉर्टेंट है। प्लीज इमेजिन दिस एज अ वेरी सिंपल बिजनेस ऑफ अ बिजनेसमैन जिसका एक छोटा सा कैपिटल है, छोटी सी टेरिटरी है, छोटे से बहुत कम कस्टमर्स है, उन्हीं से रिलेशनशिप बिल्डिंग है। सेल्स टीम में मैं अकेला था, ऑपरेशन में सिर्फ एक ही जन था, ऑफिस हमारी एक 1 BHK की भी एक रूम में थी, पूरा 1 BHK भी नहीं लिया था।
ठीक है।
एक ही अकाउंटेंट था जो आज भी है, वही HR था, वही अकाउंटेंट था, वही कैशियर था, हर चीज वही था।
हाँ।
राइट? जैसा एक आम इंसान का पूरे इंडिया में मेरे जैसे ऐसे उस समय बहुत सारे लोग होंगे, आज भी होंगे, वैसे ही रन कर रहे हैं। राइट? कट ऑन योर कॉस्ट, कम से कम लीन टीम को अच्छे से रिवॉर्ड करो, धंधा खुद जाके करो, सेल्स खुद करो, ऑपरेशंस खुद करो, मैक्सिमम पैसा कमाओ, 12-14 घंटा तोड़ के काम करो, पैसे कमाओ। बस यही था धंधा। 2012 से 2016 भी यही करा था। ओनली डिफरेंस वाज उस समय प्रॉप अकाउंट्स में कर रहे थे। 16-17 में ये कंपनी फॉर्म हो गई।
17-18 की जर्नी बताइए।
17-18 भी सेम था, स्केल बड़ा था। सो फॉर मी, इफ यू आस्क मी, द phase 1 of InfraMarket was the same phase where we had gotten together because we thought it's a great concept. We teamed up together. Shravik started coming up with better process implementations. धंधा तब भी मैं ही कर रहा था, आज भी मैं ही कर रहा हूँ. Right? First of all, Shravik and we have known each other for such a long time that it's very well demarked. Right? What is his profile? What is my profile? And both of it comes naturally. I am the operations guy. He is the guy who works largely on the strategical side, raising capital through venture capitalists, working with the audit teams, taxations, raising money from bankers, entire well-being, financial health of the company, cash flow commitments is one, and also the strategical side. Where are we going directionally, right? I think today also a lot of direction and lot of forward thinking, as I've been telling you, is done by Shravi.
You were batchmates, right?
We were in the same batch. We were not batchmates. We used to go to the same classes.
ठीक है 17-18 आपने सेम चीज करा
Same cheese kiya, but then till then we had started conceptualizing on the process and the scale of it. Again, but very limited to concrete. Lot of time in 2018, Shavik a lot of time started going towards towards chasing the investors. It's absolutely cold calling. He used to get up religiously every day, right? Pick up LinkedIn and keep pinging people. Like what? He would write 100 emails a day, keep texting people. लोग मिलते थे, बुलाते थे, 2 महीना 3 महीने बाद मीटिंग होता था, बट ही शुड जस्ट कीप इट. सो मैं उठता था, बैग उठा के जाके सेल्स फील्ड पे, वो उठाता था लाके लैपटॉप पे, ये यही कर रहे हैं हम.
बैंक से कैपिटल नहीं ले सकते थे कैपिटल
We already raised it ना. अभी खुद का घर दे दिया, पेरेंट्स का दे दिया, इन-लॉज का दे दिया, और कैसे रहे, राइट? सो आई थिंक that money we had exhausted. So money available from personal means was already exhausted.
ठीक है
Right. So we had already exhausted all of that capital. Right. In 2018, we got within the known circle, we got an angel investor.
कितना आपने रेस करा था
Only 1.2 crores.
ठीक है
And they had picked up some equity.
हाउ मच ऑफ दैट
If I'm not wrong, would be around 10% equity.
और वो आपने 1.5 करोड़ रुपए जो 1.2 करोड़ था कहाँ पर इन्वेस्ट करा वर्किंग कैपिटल
अपना धंधा वर्किंग कैपिटल का ही था उस समय.
ठीक है
But we were very confident. We could foresee the larger picture that can be built.
which was
Again at that time was only concrete,
ठीक
but
है.
scale. Something where we are doing only concrete, right? Can we add more product categories and bring scale in that, right? जैसे हम तब तक उतना ही रॉ मटेरियल सप्लाई करते थे जितने हम concrete पिकअप कर रहे हैं, बट स्टैंड अगर मेरी सप्लाई चेन फिक्स है, I can still supply to other players, right? Can I treat it like a single portfolio, a single product rather than looking at it from a raw material angle? अगर मैं सीमेंट ले रहा हूँ एंड मेरी सीमेंट की सोर्सिंग अच्छी है, तो मैं सिर्फ कंक्रीट के लिए क्यों लूं? सो दिस ऑल स्टार्टेड थिंकिंग कि सोर्सिंग अच्छी है, मार्जिन है, तो सिर्फ खुद के लिए क्यों? एक काम करो, बाकी सबको भी बेचते हैं, इसको बिजनेस मॉडल बनाते हैं.
दिस वाज द बिजनेस मॉडल एंड हाउ मच कितना रेवेन्यू आपने जनरेट करा
2000 March 18 we closed at a 28.5 crore revenue.
17 गॉट इट
Yeah.
doing the same thing
Yeah.
what was the journey of 2018
2000 from April 2018, as I told you, very consciously Strovik started going out hitting other investors. While we cracked one angel investor on our own, but rest was always a no show, right? लोग यही बोलते थे, करी क्या रहे हो, स्टील ही तो बेच रहे हो, सीमेंट ही तो बेच रहे हो, पत्थर ही तो बेच रहे हो, इसमें क्या स्कोप है? अगर कंक्रीट बेच के इतना होता तो कोई भी कर लेता, या कोई और लार्ज बिल्डिंग मटेरियल कंपनी है क्यों नहीं करी? ऑफ कोर्स टू ईच इट्स ओन, दे हैड देयर ओन रीजंस एंड अ पोलाइट वे टू से नो, राइट? व्हिच वाज कि मतलब कि हाँ, मतलब ज्यादा बड़ा नहीं है, स्केल नहीं है, सीमेंट का ही बिजनेस है, ये नहीं है, we should keep trying, keep bringing in, let's get to some scale, let's bring in some revenue, देखते हैं, होता है, करते हैं, right? ठीक है, right? Everyone is right, I believe, right? You're only a villain in somebody else's story, right? You're never villain in your own story.
True.
So ठीक है, वो चलता रहा, but he kept doing it, and he started building a better network. Right, of getting the connects. I think in Jan 2019 was when we had Axel ringing us. Of course, we had reached out the analyst came down, he saw a lot of, they did a lot of diligence, started going to all our plants, जहाँ पे हम contract manufacturing कर रहे, looking at the margins, so a lot of things. I think the first round was done by Axel. I think काफी फिल्मी था वो भी.
कैसे is Prashant involved in all this?
Some places you have to be lucky, right? Everything is, while I give a lot of credit to hard work, but I think some things are also luck and destiny.
What was luck then?
I think we came across a brilliant analyst of Axel.
ठीक है.
We came across Kanishk Tyagi was his name. He's not with Axel now. He's, I think, moved to Falcon. But Kanishk was an entrepreneur himself, right? Before joining Axel, he was an entrepreneur himself. He had sold his company to one of the startups and then he joined, right? So he had more of an entrepreneurship mindset to understand, right? Not that I'm saying the other analysts do not have, but the other analysts typically come from a very, very hardcore financial background.
And he was coming from an operating background.
I think so. His understanding of our business, or at least we could explain him better and he could understand it better.
ठीक है.
So I think meeting Kanishk on this, right, was the first thing that went right. Second thing, which I would give all the credit to Kanishk, was that, so how this venture cap, how any firm works is when you come to an analyst will refer you to a partner.
हाँ.
Kanishk had an option to refer to multiple partners of Axel, right? A, B, C, D, multiple. There were multiple partners, right? And the partner would take a call. I think he choosing Prashant.
That was unlucky.
I think that was the intelligence of Kanishk. That was not lucky. That was intelligence of Kanishk. But meeting Kanishk was lucky.
Right.
Had it not been Kanishk, if we would have got connected to any other analyst,
वो किसी और से connect करा.
वो उसको खुद को कितना समझता नहीं समझता कैसे, I don't know. So I think Kanishk had an intelligence to get it to Prashant. Prashant was a civil engineer, right? Prashant, as by qualification, was a civil engineer. Prashant, in his early childhood, I remember he telling us he himself had gone to these minings and he has seen mining and all very closely. So I think he had an appreciation of what we were doing. He understood the complexity of concrete and aggregate business and the meat thing, the meat possible. I still remember my first meeting with Prashant. Shovik and I had taken up an early morning flight and पूरे flight पे first time pitch deck दे रहे हैं, तो prepare कर रहे हैं, multiple presentations, this तू ये बोलना, मैं ये बोलना, ऐसा वैसा, and पूरा सब चल रहा है. And of course इसके पहले हमने बहुत सारे pitch deck दे दिए थे जो एक भी successful नहीं थे, right? So we were in that crisp when we were talking to 3 venture capitalists. All were showing interest. So there was Axel, there was Sequoia, there were a few more, right? So formal pitch deck बहुत हुए थे, but closure एक का नहीं हुआ था. So ऐसा लगा था यार कहीं हमारी pitch deck में कमी है, और preparation करते हैं, right? So Shovik मुझसे, and as I told Shovik, because he's the number guy, for him a lot of things came very naturally because I'm a business guy, right? So a lot of things I had to practice. So I remember this early morning flight and we were discussing and there were passengers getting irritated, कितना बात कर रहे हो, शांत हो जाओ, बोलो. We were enthusiastic, excited, बोल रहे थे. ये करके, and Prashant had a flight back to catch. So Prashant was coming to Bangalore airport and we were going. So he said, let's meet up midway itself, right? What had happened that time is that I think it was also an ITC, ITC in Bangalore that we were meeting. For the traffic of Bangalore, which is so unpredictable, Prashant called up, hey guys, I'm running late. And so the entire 1 hour meeting, which was 20 minutes, right? He said, I just have 25-30 minutes, so let's meet up midway. Oh yeah, that was the reason he said midway. We were supposed to meet him at his office, but all this traffic, so he said, let's meet up midway, right? So we had already reached the venue, right? Now we knew that the time slot is only 20-25 minutes, right? We reached, and in fact, I had traveled to Bangalore City for the first time in my life. I'd never been to Bangalore before, and we were at this cafe.
Which year is this?
2019, right? Calendar year 2019, and I was like, फिर भी practice कर रहे हैं, मैं चल रहा हूँ, वो हो रहा है, प्रशांत आएगा, नहीं आएगा, lot of anxiety and all. And actually, even in that meeting, he was about 25, 30, 40 minutes late. So now what is the entire time got squeezed only to not more than 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. He came down, of course, he was, for the gentleman he is, he's extremely apologetic about the late timing. And the first thing he said, guys, I have a flight to catch. I really don't have time.
और वहीं पर आपको दिल में दर्द हो गया होगा.
तो मैं बोला, good. So Shovik quickly started with the presentation, said, Prashant, laptop बंद कर दो, ठीक है, tell me what you guys do. Right? But I don't want to go through. He actually said, I don't want to go through any presentations. Just tell me what you do. Right? So by this time, what had happened is Kanishk had built up my case and already presented to Prashant. Right? And Prashant ने उसने बोला कि आप बाकी सब छोड़ दो, मैंने आपके सब देख लिया, आप मुझे बताओ आप कर क्या रहे हो, आप क्या करना चाहते हो, वो बताओ. And for next 15-20 minutes, what we do, how we do, we kept on saying very simple questions of Prashant. And Prashant absorbed for 15-20 minutes and immediately said, okay guys, the meeting is done. I'll come back to you. And post that meeting, we didn't know what's the outcome, right? Was it a good meeting or bad meeting? You don't know, because in your mind you had prepared a 1 hour slot and then the FAQs and the Q&As and this, that. It happened in 15-20 minutes. And मतलब जब आप बात करते तो structure नहीं है, right? Now when you and I are talking, there is no structure. बात यहाँ की यहाँ चली जाएगी, वहाँ चली जाएगी. That's how it happens. No, so we had no clue. And Shovik like, yeah, I don't know how it is. I said, whatever it is, क्या कर सकते हैं, right? And before we even could leave the cafe, we got call from Kanishk that guys, he's interested, right? He's asked me to start the diligence. So in that 15-20 minute, we had that moment where we at least got an affirmation where he's interested. And typically when the partner level is interested, it's always an on deal. It's typically an on deal. If the partner is involved, he has given you time and then he asks his team to invest, he broadly likes things, right? Now things come down is where they're looking for eliminations. कि कुछ गलत तो नहीं है, धंधा पसंद है, फाउंडर पसंद है, अब गलत तो कुछ है नहीं ना, वो देखना है।
तो इसमें नेगोशिएशन अराउंड वैल्यूएशन कितना पैसा वो कब आया था?
अभी बहुत टाइम, देन ये हुआ, देन प्रशांत आस्क्ड कनिष्क कि आई वांट यू गाइस, आई वांट, ही हैड टोल्ड कनिष्क दैट यू हैव टू डू अ वेरी डीप डाइव diligence in it. So Kanish actually came down to Mumbai. He visited multiple of our clients to take feedback from us. He visited multiple of the vendors to take a feedback. He had a Q&A, subjective things, and he's making his notes. Lot of things that he had done.
और उन्होंने ऐसा क्यों बोला कि डीप ड्यू डिलिजेंस करना है?
I think because of the industry it is. Alright, it's a building material industry, contract manufacturing, fragmented suppliers, a lot of buyers. So unless you don't take an insight.
And no bills.
No, there are bills. Bills have always been there.
हाँ.
We have always been compliant on the billing side. Bills हमेशा रहते हैं.
नहीं, I'm talking about the industry.
In the industry, it's a darker industry,
Yes.
right? Compared to others, it's a much darker industry. And we are talking this in 2019, right? It's a significantly progressed in last 5 years, right? So go into a deeper, get to the more depth of it. Right? How are they able to do it? Because Prashant had liked this sector, but he had not seen anybody cracking it.
Right.
So Prashant liked the sector as much as I remember, I know, but he couldn't find anyone who had cracked it to the level, and we were profitable. I think the most important part is that, see, we're talking in 2019 when you had the bust of the WeWorks, right, who were from a unicorn status, or rather a decacorn status had gone bust, and you had multiple of these loss-making companies going down, right? There was the housing.com, Rahul Yadav's boss that time. Right, there was WeWork, and there were multiple other startups which were going down. Right, that was one of the dark times. 2018-19 was one of the dark times of the startup world, where a lot of startups had collapsed. Right, and we were talking at that time we were profitable.
आपने कितना प्रॉफिट रिपोर्ट करा था और क्या रेवेन्यू था, स्केल था उस वक्त?
2019, by the time Prashant came in, Axel came in, it was we were 60 crore revenue.
एंड इस पे कितना मार्जिन निकाल पा रहे थे?
2% PAT. I'm talking about 2% PAT.
लवली. और ये सारा 60 करोड़ कंक्रीट और एंसिलरी से आ रहा है, ठीक है, और सेम बिजनेस मॉडल है, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग.
Supply raw materials, but यहाँ पे by then that Axel came in, we had also started supplying raw materials to other customers as well. So I'm not only supplying my raw material to my manufacturer, but I am also supplying to multiple other companies, because मेरा supply chain उसका भी source हो चुका था.
क्योंकि आपकी सोर्सिंग बहुत स्ट्रांग
Sourcing
थी.
strong है तो भी उसको भी बेचो ना, product category है तो बेचो उसको भी. तो Kanish ने he went for a very hard deep diligence. He covered 3 cities.
हाँ.
I remember he had done not only Mumbai, he had done Bangalore, he had done Ahmedabad. I had to travel to, because potential क्या है? Is this model very unique to Mumbai, or is it scale?
राइट.
So there was a very scalable है कि तो अहमदाबाद जाके पता किया, बैंगलोर जाके पता किया, पुणे गए.
और ये करते क्या ड्यू डिलिजेंस में, क्या-क्या चीजें पूछते हैं, क्या-क्या काम करते हैं? गिव अस एन आइडिया.
The entire deep dive around all the cities. हो रहा है कि नहीं, वेंडर से मिलो, वेंडर से पूछो कि भाई आप इनसे क्यों काम कर रहे हो, ऐसा क्या बेनिफिट है कि आप इनसे करो, किसी और से नहीं कर रहे, क्या इसमें मिल रहा है, कि आपको लगता है आप इनको हमेशा सपोर्ट करने का. सो लॉट ऑफ क्वालिटेटिव एनालिसिस देन क्वांट. सी क्वांट एनालाइज करने के लिए आपकी बुक्स है.
हाँ, वो दिख रहा है उसमें.
राइट, क्वालिटेटिव, राइट, बिकॉज वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट बिल्डिंग मटेरियल स्पेस. इस स्पेस में कोई स्टार्टअप नहीं था. इस स्पेस में जो कुछ स्टार्टअप थे उस समय, वो सब वाइंड अप हो चुके थे या हो रहे थे. नन ऑफ देम इवन एग्जिस्ट, राइट, बारिंग अ फ्यू हु हैव सर्वाइव्ड, राइट.
ऑफ बिजनेस और ये सब आ रहे थे.
I think off business was more B2B play. We are a building material play.
हाँ.
Off B and me, right? Actually speaking, if you ask me, we all are different. We all are doing very different things, right? In our business model, very different thing. InfraMarket is a one-stop solution for building material space.
लाइक अगर आपको कंक्रीट चाहिए, अगर आपको पेंट चाहिए, अगर आपको सैनिटरी चाहिए, अगर आपको
टाइल्स बाथ फिटिंग चाहिए, आपको प्लाईवुड चाहिए, मॉड्यूलर किचन चाहिए, फैंसी हार्डवेयर चाहिए, लाइट्स चाहिए, अप्लायंसेस चाहिए, एवरीथिंग इज व्हाट वी आर डूइंग.
गॉट इट. और जो खरीदने वाले हैं वो हो सकता है एक बड़ा, जिसको अगर टाउनशिप लेके आनी है, वो आदमी हो सकता है, बड़े रियल एस्टेट प्लेयर्स हो सकते हैं. और कौन, अगर मैं अपना घर बना रहा हूँ तो क्या मैं भी एज ए इंडिविजुअल आपसे उस पर खरीद सकता
We
हूँ?
have 30 exclusive InfraMarket stores where we supply only our own material.
कनिष्क ड्यू डिलिजेंस कर रहे हैं चारों सिटी में, वहां से स्टोरी
So I
बताइए.
think from that, Kanish made his report. That went on almost for 30 days. Very deep diligence. Started looking at the books. Started taking ref checks from our previous colleagues, previous organizations, from the schools from which we grew up. Multiple things I did. Finally, to present us to an IC, right, investment committee.
ठीक है.
So now that's again second time that we flew to Bangalore. Right, same preparations. Preparation. इस बार तुम deck बनाना, because it's not only Prashant. It's gonna be like 6 to 8 partners of Axel, around 4 principals, and a bunch of analysts. So we actually walked in a room size of this, rather bigger than this current room, a very large conference room. 25 people sitting inside, both of us standing, and the presentation starts. I think Shawik and me are very different in multiple things. हम दोनों आज तक कभी blazers नहीं पहने, कभी suits नहीं पहने.
ठीक है.
Right.
हाँ.
We are never even formally dressed. Never. So I want to tell you that how rudimentary we are, or how rustic we are.
ठीक है.
Right. And I think I had read a very interesting concept. It's best is to be yourself. Right. तो हम जहाँ बैठ रहे वहाँ पे लोग आ रहे, तो उस समय काफी स्टार्टअप्स का उस दिन पिच था, लोग आ रहे 2 पीस में, ब्लेजर्स में, फॉर्मली ड्रेस्ड है. हम दोनों गए कुर्ता टॉप पहन के, ठीक है, सिंपल जो कंफर्टेबल था पहन के चले गए. वैसे ही थोड़ा प्रेशर था. वी एंटर्ड द रूम, ठीक है, 25 जन, सब एनालिस्ट, लाइक ऑफ कोर्स द गाइज हु हार्वर्ड पास आउट, IIM अहमदाबाद, ISB, स्टैनफोर्ड एनालिस्ट, सब करके एक साथ. एंड द प्रेजेंटेशन स्टार्ट्स. राइट. 2 स्लाइड हुआ नहीं कि सीधा Q&A चालू हो गया.
बम्बार्डिंग.
बस मतलब फिर तो वो पिक्चर देखिए, आई एम श्योर ये पिक्चर आपने देखी होगी, अंदाज अपना अपना. तो उसमें आमिर खान और सलमान खान जाते हैं परेश रावल को मिलने. उनके एक सवाल हमारे 2 जवाब, उनके एक सवाल हमारे 2 जवाब. वो सवाल पूछते गए, हम जवाब देते गए. 2 सवाल, 4 जवाब.
सबसे टफेस्ट सवाल किसने पूछा था और क्या पूछा था?
So many questions. And they were eager. See, I understand this because they had not perhaps till then seen a B2B building material space profitable startup at this scale. आज हम bootstrap करके 12 से 28, 28 से 60 करोड़ कर दिए. 12, 28, 60. We are talking about within ourselves, we did a 5x growth in 3 years. So they were marveled, they were interested, they wanted to know, and questions were very random till a point. I remember 2 things that clearly happened. एक बार शौविक को बोल रहा कि सर आई एम आंसरिंग योर क्वेश्चन, इट्स इन द नेक्स्ट स्लाइड. मतलब आप जो बोल रहे हो मैंने सब एड्रेस किया है, मेरे को जरा नेक्स्ट स्लाइड पे तो जाने दो.
ठीक है.
ठीक है. तो वो जब तक अगले स्लाइड पे तो अगला क्वेश्चन. सो वी हैड कवर्ड ऑल ऑफ थिंग्स, बट वी डिडंट इवन हैव टाइम, एंड दैट वाज अ 60-minute सेशन व्हिच वेंट टू ऑलमोस्ट 90 minutes plus, 100 minutes, एंड वी येट कुडंट कंप्लीट अ प्रेजेंटेशन. मेरा प्रेजेंटेशन लास्ट तक कंप्लीट ही नहीं हुआ. एक्चुअली इट वाज ओनली अ Q&A. And I clearly remember that वो Q&A होते होते इतने questions हो गए. Clearly at one point of time, Prashant had to step in. So there were also questions about macros, economy, this, ये हुआ तो क्या हुआ अभी तो, and that was a time when the government has only it was second term. So what if the infra spend doesn't happen? We are prone to this multiple. And actually Prashant had to step in and say, guys, let's go easy. If the government doesn't spend, that's more of a macro problem. Let's be realistic, right? So if we believe in construction and infra growth, if everything grows, they would grow. If it doesn't grow, it doesn't grow, right? So that's not an answer. So Prashant had to step in, and he actually answered questions on our behalf, a few of them. Kanishk had to step in, right, to get the entire thing, okay, to defend us, so that because they were also understanding for us, and I see 25, 30 people and all questions coming in while we were defending and answering, right? But there were times when even they came in and stepped from our side and answered.
Was it your first time in an IC meeting?
IC was the first time. Our next IC was scheduled with Sequoia, right? But it was not a pure IC. Before that, we had, as I told you, multiple meetings with the partners, but there was no IC. This was my first IC. The fact remains that somebody was talking to you for 90 minutes. They extended their time. We could answer it, maybe not in a format, not formalized, but we could answer all of them. You had a situation where the partner, and Prashant, right? He's a founder member of Axel India, right? He is defending you. If you look at it, it's not the worst of the thing, right? I don't know what the result would be, right? But I think अपन इससे better कुछ हो नहीं सकता था. इससे better हम मांगे क्या?
ठीक है.
Right? तो वो हो गया and all, and we just went to the, we stepped out, used the restrooms. And just as soon as we came out of the restroom, Prashant was with the deal, right? And he was like, he just came. Well, I have something. Prashant travels very densely, right? He was like, the deal actually closed outside the washroom in the lobby of Axel, where we both had just stepped out of the restroom. Prashant was there. He was like, guys, I would want X equity at a Y valuation. And we both were just looking. We didn't even know what to do, right? And Shawik was blank. So, because I was more from a business background and negotiation with the deals, vendors, ये वो मैं करता ही था. मैंने naturally जो negotiate कर लिया. प्रशांत बोला ये, मैं बोला नहीं सर ये नहीं है, ये थोड़ा ज़्यादा ऐसा नहीं ऐसा. बोला यार चलो ठीक है, handshake.
क्या फिर फाइनल हुआ था? कितनी इक्विटी डाइल्यूट करी थी आपने? कितने पैसे?
We had diluted 22.5% equity and we have raised 100 crores.
Got it. और what was the first offer that Prashant made?
Prashant had asked for 25% plus equity. So typically it's an A series raise at 25% dilution. He was 25% and a lesser capital. See, when I know he's offering a deal, that is he's interested. So he was like कि नहीं ठीक है ऐसा है, नहीं यार ये ज्यादा है, ये कम है, मतलब नहीं प्रशांत लुक एट द वैल्यू, हमने हमें प्रॉफिटेबल रखा है, बाकी सब ये देखो वगैरह ऐसे करके, इसे कि ठीक है यार कैपिटल मैं बढ़ा देता हूँ पर मुझे चाहिए 25% इक्विटी। जैसे ही सर ओके आई पुट इट 100 राउंड फिगर, ऐसे नहीं सर 25 नहीं, कुछ ये करो 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 ऐसे करके तो फाइनली वी सेटल फॉर इट। बट इट वाज एन ऑल इन ऑल अ 5 to 7 9 minutes conversation in the lobby, standing, both three of us standing, and it was like okay I have to go handshake and the deal closed. Right, so it actually went so quick, so fast that even we had not envisaged this again कि ऐसा भी होता है, ऐसा भी होगा। हम लोग ठीक है दिए आईसी 3 दिन 5 दिन बाद बोलेंगे, फिर कुछ मांगेंगे, फिर हाँ या ना बोलेंगे, whatever, I think वो तुरंत हो गया and we had actually closed on Axel.
What's your biggest learning up till this point?
Be yourself. I think, and we still believe it. Whatever it is, you stand for it. Right, wrong, leave it to people's judgment. But be yourself. I think in that moment, if had I gone with the flow or मैं सब explain कर, there were questions which we couldn't answer, and we said we didn't know.
ठीक है.
Right? There were times where we were standing for each other. Some questions he handled. You have to stick together. I think as founders, as early founders at Series A, actually investors would look into that. How much do you stand for each other? Thick and thin. And I think that chemistry came to us naturally, and we closed it. So we had the whole day for us. We went to our hotel room, we relaxed. And actually what had happened, we started getting call from Sequoia. So Sequoia पीछे चल रहा था, right? For some reason, Sequoia को भी मालूम, we are assuming that, and he wanted to, guys, I want to meet you immediately. Ecosystem इतना robust और cohesive है कि कहीं की भी डील हो सबको मालूम पड़ ही जाता है।
एक दिन के अंदर, उसी टाइम पे,
2-1 घंटे के अंदर। And प्रशांत ने डील की थी, there was no term sheet, it was a handshake. He said gentleman's handshake. We said gentleman's handshake and we left the thing. And Sequoia ने हमको बुलाया. We actually went to Sequoia office.
Same day.
मैं Sequoia गया, वहाँ पे मैं अब तो मेरा IC भी हो चुका था. I had a feeling, we had the presentation anyways ready, practicing in the airplane. हमने Sequoia को भी दे दिया उस समय, right? कि we were presenting and all. We went back and anyways we had no regrets. अब हमारी कहानी बहुत फिल्मी है, बहुत सारी जगह पे बहुत ज्यादा फिल्मी है. रात के 11 बजे तनिष्क टर्म शीट लेके होटल आया था, क्योंकि तनिष्क को भी मालूम पड़ गया था कि Sequoia चेस कर रहा है. It was 11 p.m. at night. We were half drunk, half slept in our rooms. And he said, guys, nothing doing. Man, अरे कनिष्क कल सुबह कर लेते ना, और हम लोग we are in for it. Like don't worry. Like हम लोग गए थे वो ठीक है, but and कनिष्क तब तक कनिष्क से आप वो अच्छा very young guy, is younger than us, right? तो नहीं I don't know, I have a pressure, you have to do right now. I don't know. I'm coming to your hotel. मैंने तू होटल मत आ, इसमें मैं आता हूँ. It was 10:30, 11 p.m. at night. From a hotel, we had gone to Axel's office. Right, at Koramangala. Office में कोई नहीं था, एक security guard और एक कनिष्क था. He printed the term sheet then, right? He got us signed at that hour of night. So it was that of a filmy thing. अब भी करो. अचानक मतलब लाइफ में तब तक ना कोई भी चीज रियलिस्टिक जैसा लग ही नहीं रहा. सब ऐसा लगता है ये क्या हो रहा है. मतलब हर चीज ऑर्गेनाइज्ड होती है. आपकी आईसी ऑर्गेनाइज, आपका फर्स्ट मीटिंग पार्टनर से ऑर्गेनाइज होना चाहिए, आपकी आईसी होनी चाहिए सोफिस्टिकेटेड, आपका टर्म शीट आप आराम से सोचिए मस्त बोर्ड रूम में बैठे हो, अच्छे मोटे डॉक्यूमेंट्स आप साइन कर रहे हो, कुछ बात कर रहे हो, कॉफी पी रहे हो, देन यू सेलिब्रेट विद अ वाइन. ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं हुआ हमारे साथ. वी एक्चुअली डिडंट गेट एनी ऑफ द मोमेंट.
एक बात ऑनेस्टली बताना, उस समय पे आपको ऐसा नहीं लगा यार एक्सेल ने ये डील दे दी है, अब मैं जाके सिक्वोया को लेवरेज करूंगा?
सी इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. आपको जब आप बिजनेस बना रहे हो ना, आपको आपके पार्टनर्स चूज करना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट. पार्टनर्स कम इन वेरियस फॉर्म्स. योर वेंडर इज ऑल्सो योर पार्टनर, जो आपको मटेरियल सप्लाई कर रहा है भरोसे पे. योर क्लाइंट इज ऑल्सो योर पार्टनर एंड इन्वेस्टर इज ऑल्सो योर पार्टनर. आपने पार्टनर कोई भी गलत सिलेक्ट कर लिया, भले वो लाइफ पार्टनर हो, बिजनेस पार्टनर हो, वेंडर पार्टनर हो, क्लाइंट पार्टनर, कोई भी, यू आर गोना बी डूम्ड. राइट, यू कैन नॉट गो रॉन्ग ऑन दैट. ऑल आई न्यू इज दैट एक्सेल ने मेरे बिजनेस पे बहुत टाइम स्पेंड किया है. They really spent a lot of time understanding my business. They went and spoke to 20, 30 of my clients. Just went to 10 of my vendors. They have done the diligence on me. So the conviction, it's simple. मैं आपके साथ जितना ज्यादा वक्त बिताऊंगा, मैं आपको उतना बेटर जानूंगा.
बिल्कुल.
एक्सेल ने ना वो वक्त बिताया था जिससे हमें कन्विक्शन था.
Was Sequoia convinced?
I don't know. I would not say he was not convinced. I'm just saying that Axel just spent a lot more time on me. I think it was 2 days celebration for us, and then for us life was again going back to business.
और 60 करोड़ के रेवेन्यू पे 100 करोड़ वैल्यूएशन was in this thing was because it's just one point.
It's never looked like that. I think 60 crore पे रेवेन्यू पे 100 crore वैल्यूएशन ऐसा नहीं दिखा था. पोटेंशियल दिखा था, ग्रोथ दिखा था. ऐसे तो फिर लॉस, फ्लिपकार्ट इज वैल्यूड एट $40 billion, आज भी लॉस मेकिंग है.
Right.
आज if I look at my valuation later that happened, I got much better multiples.
Right.
I can always either I can look at it this way, that the valuation I got later was 3x, 4x my revenue, whatever, right? The multiple was much better than what Axel did. Or I can also look at it, ki Axel aaya, he stood by me, he did the round. Maybe he negotiated very hard, right? And that's the reason we got a platform to perform. And that's the reason we give from 60 crores next year, I did a 350 crores revenue,
Crazy.
right? But that was also because Axel aaya, he gave me that capital. And that's the other way to look at it. And that's how we look at it.
Even after running this business profitably for 3 years, bootstrapping it, the VCs were not able to recognize it because they look for a precedent in US or a China market.
That's true. That's very, very true. I think for us, one of the happy moments of in this journey has been when people use the templates of our deck, or people use phrases like we are building the infra market of Latin America, or we are building the infra market of Africa, right? So actually, if you see, we have come across many decks. Many investors have reached out as they wanted to invest in so-called infra market of their region. So I think, yeah, coming across that phrase is makes us proud. And there ain't any replicable globally of what we are doing. That's true.
So the interesting part is 2020, 350 crores. 2021, 1242 crores. 2022, 6231 crores. 2023, you reported 11,846 crores in revenue.
Yeah.
All years profitably. And that too is a very asset-light model that you're saying, right?
Oh no, it's not that asset light anymore. I think we have gone very dense on manufacturing, and we intend to go very dense. So I think asset light. So for me, it is the being an asset light or not asset light is a function of finance, right? You buy an asset, you own an asset, or you lease an asset. So I'm not talking from that angle. I'm saying that irrespective whatever the financial impact, I'm extremely deep on manufacturing. So while I may be asset light by financial modeling, I am not asset light from an operational modeling. Are you getting it? So there may be a factory that my vendor has put it up, but driving of that factory in terms of quality, production, QC,
Is operational heavy.
everything is mine. And apart from that, you cannot fix supply chain, right? So yes, we are a blend today where we own assets, we lease assets. We want to stay as asset light as possible, right? But the idea is that operationally we are no more asset light, right? To fix supply chain, you have to get your hands dirty, fold up your sleeves, go down and get the work done.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Here's the business model where you want to become a one-stop supply for any and everything related to building material.
True.
चाहे paints हो, electrician हो, आपका concrete हो, assault, उसके supplements हो, whatever. And in true sense, your competition is not off business, Moglix or wo, but they are the Havels of the world, the Kajaria if they are into
So if you're talking about a vertical specific, so if you see how India is, in India, I'll tell you that the characteristic is that there is a stalwart or there is an industry leader in each of the verticals. Now, if you see on the other side, the person who is consuming this product is the same of all the products. Let's say you're doing your house.
I need everything.
It's not that you're going to only go and buy paint. It's not that you're only going to buy plywood or laminates. It's not that you're only going to buy tiles. It's not that you're going to only buy electrical fittings. You're going to buy everything.
Right.
So if you see the demand is consolidated, the supply is fragmented.
Yes. मेरे को अलग-अलग दुकान पे जाना पड़ता है.
बिल्कुल.
अलग-अलग बार negotiate करना पड़ता है.
Can somebody actually take up the entire wallet share or the largest wallet share of the same consumer is the fight that we want to take. That's our battle, right? That if you're making a house, can I actually give you all the product category? If you're a real estate developer doing it, can I actually take the entire product category or majority of the product category? Is our strategy to it. The industry is isolated is by the virtue of the way they started, right? Of course, they are also changing, right? If you see today, a lot of plumbing companies getting into faucets and bath fittings, right? If you see, I think Asian Paints, they've very carefully gone into furnishing. They've got into home improvement segments, right? So I think the industry is realizing that you may have to grow cross-segmentation, cross-sell, upsell, multiple categories of same consumer. So I think that is what would give you a right to win over the next 10 years, right? I believe that if you're concentrated on a product category, you may be the largest player, have a very large wallet share, right? But if you're looking from a 10-year perspective, right, please understand that your client is getting exposed to other companies who may cross-sell and upsell them and sell multiple products and go.
The interesting part here is, if a client comes to your platform and ask for, let's say, a cement, so you will provide them other Ultratech, ACC, and other things, but you will also provide your private labels.
No, I think not. So I'll tell you, in majority of the categories, we have gone completely private label.
But earlier it was.
That was, we pivoted.
Huh.
Because as I told you, the supply chain was collapsing. Right? So today, if you come to my platform, that is my stores, if you come to dedicated InfraMarket stores, or you come across InfraMarket sales team, or you go to a platform, if you require any product category, I'll give you something of my own brand, right? Something of my own manufacturing unit, right? We no more do other brands, barring of course steel and cement. So cement, we don't even sell cement anymore, right? But barring steel, because in steel you cannot go manufacturing heavy.
Right.
You cannot make another JSW Steel or a Tata Steel or an ArcelorMittal. That will not happen, right? So I think barring a few categories where we have where we do not see ourselves going to manufacturing, in all of the large other building material category, we are completely private label.
We'll come to 2019, 60 crores. उससे next year you recorded a revenue of 350 crores. एक साल में ये growth आपने कैसे देखी और what was the pivot इस time पे आपने करा था?
See, there's a quote, right? I became millionaire overnight, but the night came after 10 years. So it's that. You have to understand, I've been doing this business since 2012 until 2019. Now, if you give me resources, for me, scaling will not be a problem because I've been doing it for 6-7 years in my life. And for me, capital was the only constraint. Right? So the 19 to 20, the bump up came in because of even enough demand generated and no capital being there. As soon as the Axel money came in, that from 60 crores to 350 crores was just selling more and more to our same set of clientele, which we couldn't do before.
Right. And this was same business model that you were in.
Same business model. I think we started pivoting post-COVID. So, once there was a lockdown, by then we had, of course, I think the larger, one more parameter that brought in the growth was from Mumbai. We also started Bangalore and Pune.
इतना दूर आपने कैसे पकड़ा?
It's one of the very large city of the country where the crowd is very cosmo and there's a huge real estate development. I think a lot of economy of Bangalore is driven through IT and tech. That's the reason if you see there's an evergreen demand for real estate for the disposable income, and that is where we belong. So I think that is how Bangalore and Pune came in, is because the back end of the economy has a larger drive, has a larger spend on building material or on home improvisation.
जो insight था कि हमको private level पे move करना है, वो insight कैसे आया आपको?
Actually, that was also not an insight. It was a forced insight by the industry. I should thank the industry for it, right? The competition for it. But it was more of a forced insight. So when you're an aggregator, you're selling somebody else's products, right? For example, just let's say, hum electrical start case. So you're selling somebody else's brand. What happens is, the moment for them, understand from their perspective, they have, from sales channel, they are sales perspective, they only have two models, right? One is project sales, right? They'll approach directly to large projects, townships, infra companies, contracting companies, multiple things. And then they have a channel sales.
जो retail पे आदमी जाके खरीदता है.
Distributor, dealer, channel sales बोलते हैं. ये दो यही है. हम जो आए, we fit in neither, right? So, but because they didn't want to lose on the sales, they tried to fit all the new companies in channel sales. Now, what happens is that if you fit a large company with such large resources like ours to the channel sales, then you obviously start distorting the channel, because my ability to sell is now, who's my competition is their dealer.
Right.
एक छोटा डीलर या डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर का उसका ability, उसके resources और मेरे ability resource में बहुत ज्यादा फर्क होगा, right? So I will start outselling. I'll start hurting their own channel. So if you see, a lot of building material companies in India are built on these channels for years, and a company would not like to disturb their channel. It's a huge loyalty fan following. Because once a channel gets disturbed, their competition will take advantage of the same unhappy, disgruntled channel and dump their products.
Right.
So they have to protect their channel, right? So what will happen? They'll not let me grow. They started cutting my territory. They started cutting on my SKUs. They would not let us grow because we didn't want to hurt their channel. And of course, they also from their de-risking element, right? Now, when I look at it, they may also not want to be too dependent upon us for their sales, right? But on the other hand, I am much larger than a distributor, can put up much larger sales team, can put up much larger capital, can bring in more distortion, right? And I cannot be dependent upon somebody else's products. And at the end of it, I am helping them build their brand, right? So if I am doing all the hard work of selling the product, marketing the product, giving credit to the market, get the collection done, then the only piece that is missing is supply chain and the manufacturing. If I happen to fix that, then that also changes my gross profile margins, right? To a very large extent, the gross profile margins would simply change, because when you're on this side of the when you're as an aggregator, you cannot work more than 5 to 7% gross margin business. It's not possible, because that's how in India all distribution, all C&F agents, all dealers have been working on, right? Yeah, 7% kind of business. But the moment you shift yourself on the manufacturing side, because your gross margin simply becomes 20%, 25%, right? So that is where, while it got triggered by the ecosystem itself, but it helped us to take a much wiser decision, right? It was their deeds which helped us down. So it was actually more of a blessing in disguise to us.
इसमें जब आपने अपने प्राइवेट लेवल इंट्रोड्यूस करा प्लेटफॉर्म पे बाकी सारे लोगों के साथ, तब कोई चैलेंज नहीं आया?
आता ही है सर, they'll start cutting you down completely. I'm still left with so much of plumbing stock, right? So if you see plumbing doesn't sell by piece, it sells by the entire portfolio. अगर आप कोई बिल्डिंग का काम करो, आपको कपलिंग भी लगेगा, टी पट्टी भी लगेगी, आपको कुछ जॉइंटिंग मोटर भी लगेंगे, आपको ये भी लगेगा, वो भी. But there have been many areas where to complete the basket, the company is no more supplying me the material. यानी मेरे पास समझ कोई कंपनी का मटेरियल है, एज अ कंज्यूमर यू वांट 50 SKUs, I only have 30 SKUs or 20 SKUs, the company is not giving it to me, now I become a dead stock. So of course the competition will also do their bit of not necessarily a foul play, but more of a defensive mechanism where they'll not go. Some industries, some of the industry got smarter. They didn't even let us enter. See, at the end of it, every industry is dominated by 3 to 4 large players. They said, let's not let them enter, because they'll enter the game and eventually launch their own private label. Which again, I completely understand their thought process and appreciate it. Perhaps if I would have been in their place, would have done something similar or something nastier, right? I don't know, maybe something nastier as well. But what it resulted is, yes, they tried to cut us down, they tried to protect their market share, but again, we kept moving.
Right. Walk me through the growth from 350 crores of revenue to 1242 crores of revenue.
To be fair and to be honest, it looks like a 5x growth, but we are talking about multiple categories getting folded into one. It's not like I'm growing 5x in single product category, right? So मैं बाहर से ना एक पूरा like it may look okay, this company is growing 5x, but if you see it from inside, if you distort it, I am also a bunch of multiple product categories, right? So you keep growing, right? Your base is smaller in multiple product categories, so I think it's easier to grow. Of course, and after COVID, you had a pent-up demand generally in the industry. The best of the results by all building material companies were given during that time because there was a pent-up demand. Things had shut down and then all of a sudden things had come up, right? And people started wanted to buy more, spend more. So that was general phenomena. So I think I would not give a lot of, while I know it has been a significant growth, I appreciate my team's efforts for it, right? But I still think a lot needs to be delivered. Unless we do not become a significant player in each of the category, I think I have not achieved what I imagined to be.
लेकिन इस टाइम में what was the growth lever? What were the growth lever and what was driving the majority of revenue?
I think growth lever has always been is we starting multiple regions and multiple categories, right? So from a pure concrete play, what we were in 1920 when we raised our initial rounds, 20, today we have a complete building material space, right? I think we have also gone wide in the offerings. So when you go so much wide, right? So of course the revenue will grow, and also you've gone wide on the region itself. Right. From a pure West company, we became first a West and South company, now we become pan India. So I think the growth was bound to happen.
Also help me understand 20 December 20 में जब आपकी 180 million valuation थी और February 21 में 3 महीने के अंदर it grew to 1 billion. ये जादू कैसे करा आपने?
Actually ये जादू नहीं था. To be fair is that we had got a better valuation before that only.
ठीक है.
What happened is because of the COVID, there was the term sheet was withdrawn. So it's not 180 million to 1 billion. it was 180 million to one more point, and that from one point it should have been 1 billion. But what happened, जब वो point पे था, वो valuation, वो term sheet got withdrawn. So I think it was Tiger Global which put us to that mark of the valuation.
Of course, that growth and the valuation were driven by your, revenues and profits. But do you think lofty valuations were coming with some expectations of investors?
Of course, it does.
क्या expectations थी and what were certain?
I think it's not an expectation from the investors. See, I think as you grow your company large, I think your stakeholders are not just left to investors. I think it's not fair to say that the growth only comes from investor pressure. I think it has got to do with you yourself as well. It's got to do with your ecosystem. Today we have 4,000 employees, 4,000 families direct, 4,000 families indirect, and a bunch of ecosystem which is dependent upon us. All right. So I think the pressure to grow, to survive, to keep growing comes with the entire ecosystem. I think in the end, it's the game who's playing you and not you who are playing the game.
This is interesting. Also, help me understand, when do you decide whether to buy a factory or to rent it out?
It's largely commercial decision. I think there is enough data available when you do the analysis of the project that what makes more sense, right? There have been instances where we used to first lease it out and we realized that buying makes sense. There were instances where we first bought it out and then moved to leasing. So it's very dynamic in nature, but it's largely a financial matrix decision, right? It's not a gut feeling, or it's not a decision making. It's not a subjective point, right? It's more objective in nature, where you know that, okay, money put away here, okay, this product makes sense in contract manufacturing, this product makes sense in leased manufacturing, this product makes sense in self manufacturing.
जब आपने RDC को acquire करा था, and that to us is very phenomenal thing, because एक 4-year पुरानी company is taking over a 27-year-old business.
Yeah.
What were some challenges associated with that thing?
I think that was an interesting chapter, because you would see it from a 4-year-old buying out of 20-year-old. I would see that I remember myself endlessly sitting in RDC receptions for taking orders. I used to be one of their vendors, one of their clients, right? And from that journey, where
Acquiring that company.
from where it used to take me hours to meet the management, right, to actually buying it out, right? So I actually see it from that. I think I see the victory over there more, because I have done the bottoms up walking to seek their orders, to get my payments released, to get my orders released, right? So I think, yeah, it has been a significant journey, but largely we knew RDC very well, right? Because as I told you, we had business relations. We had the client and a vendor relation with them, right? So I knew the quality of the asset. I knew the quality of the management, which is spectacular. Before us, it was owned by a private equity player, True North, right? So that also ensures that the company is management driven and not a promoter driven. When it's a management driven company, right, the hygiene factors and the checkpoints are much higher. I would not say it's not in promoters, but generally, right, for the private equity player and the standards they have, right? So that also tells you about the quality of the asset, the way it's kept, right? Third, and I think actually the most important, we actually believed in the concrete story, right? We are talking about a market which was 90% fragmented market to becoming a category leadership. We could see it that this industry is where we can bring an impact.
Also walk me, जब आपने RDC का acquisition करा था full scale में, how did it help? Second, you also then decided to sell 10% of stake to the investors. Why was it?
I think that was more of a strategic call that we had sold it to more investors, to get more investors. I think just to get a larger discipline and to have a third person view even on the board at how it is. Perspective. I think that was more of a financial decision. I think we keep exploring such avenues time and again. That was on the stake sale side. I think on the other side, why the benefit RDC brings us is, as I told you, it's the largest concrete player. When we had bought in RDC, it was a 40 plant company at approximately 65-70 crore EBITDA. Our zeal and our commitment and our conviction on the business is very high. Today, RDC is more than 100 plants, right? If you look at the numbers this year, it's growing like what, a 45-50% CAGR on the EBITDA numbers. It's growing on a 25-30% growth. So I think it's generally our conviction on the industry. That is what I have done for last 12 years in my life. You are just seeing it because you have started, because we have come out of service right now. But the understanding of the business, the belief in the business, the conviction, knowing the team has happened for many, many years before.
When did you start exporting, your tiles to Jordan and Dubai, and what was the?
So I think it's not just we, even the industry is, even the industry is exporting. It's not that uniquely I am exporting to Jordan and Dubai and multiple European countries. I think the industry is exporting. So we are just
What's the concentration of Indian market versus export market, and where are you batting on? What's the thesis there?
I think the focus remains on both of the markets. Both of the markets are very unique. At least in the ceramic space, India is becoming the preferred global manufacturing hub.
Why is that?
That is because of unit economics, right? That is because China plus one story, right? Everybody wants to want to move, not have a concentrated supply from China, right? I think that's also got to do a lot with the government initiatives that we have done, with the way we are perceived, right? Our industry practice, our quality practice. It's got to do with a lot of things over the ecosystem that's happening. But generally, if you see India's share, I think in 2017-18, India was a net importer of ceramics today to what we are today. In 8 years, we are a net exporter, right?
What has led this shift?
I think if you ask me, I see a clear shift of government's initiatives and government's thought process on making India manufacturing, self-dependent manufacturing, even perhaps global supplier, right? We are shifting. There's a clear shift in the thought process towards a boost on the manufacturing side, and that is going to help a lot of SMEs in coming time, right? And there's been serious efforts by government in Make in India, right? It's just not a concept. Trust me, in the real world, there's a lot of efforts that government is pushing through various PLI schemes, various state incentives, various relaxation of norms, multiple things, and that is what we are seeing. As in, we as an industrialist are only exploring these opportunities and trying to capitalize on it.
जैसे आपने एक्सेल की सीरीज ए की स्टोरी बताई थी, हाउ आर यू एबल टू कन्विंस टाइगर to put in 100 million first and then another 125 million in your next round?
The $1 billion round was also just a 12-minute call. Absolutely 12-minute call with Tiger that Shovik had. I think it was more. So while Tiger had invested in Series A itself, it had co-invested with Nexus, so it was already on the cap table. So they were watching our business grow. I think at that point of time, post-COVID, they wanted to double down on India, and they did. They really made a lot of investments in Indian startup ecosystem because they were already a part. They were already our investors. I think their conviction on InfraMarket was very high. But all I know is another epic and filmy story that शौविक ने कॉल लिया, 12 मिनट का कॉल था, 13 मिनट he said let's, right? And in fact, honestly, we didn't even call out for that valuation, right? It was not we who said that okay, we think our valuation is this and we should raise money in that. We just said we are looking out to raise capital. Scott asked us that what's the money that you're looking at. We said we have anything around 70 to 80 million will take us. So he was like, how much time that gives you a runway for how many months? So that at a high growth, it will give us 6 months runway. Like, okay, let's not do a 70, 80, let's do 100 million. I'll put in 100 million check, right? I'll lead the round, and I think the valuation should be this. So it was he who called out for the valuation. We honestly, as I told you, we had no idea, and we never asked for that valuation. Of course, but we were overwhelmed, and we still are grateful for Tiger for getting us to the unicorn club at that point of time.
Profitable unicorn club.
Profitable unicorn club at that point of time. But again, I think so a gesture like that puts you on more pressure because you have outgrown the valuation, right? Deep inside, I know that when I was at a unicorn club, right, I've been overvalued. Now the onus remains on you that you have to grow into it, right? The onus remains on you as a founder, right? Because somebody has given you more valuation, believing it that you'll do it in future, right? You'll out deliver it in the future. Now the responsibility comes on the founders. They have to now I can't short-live them. I can't short-stay them. I have to outgrow it. And that's what we did. There was an enormous growth, right? Enormous growth at that scale. So this was a time when we're talking from growing from a 1,200 crores to a 6,000 crores during a COVID year.
वो कैसे करा था आपने? क्योंकि कोविड में जनरली डिमांड रुक गया था, लोगों का वो रुक गया था, but still you supplied it.
The product is required by the ecosystem, right? When your government is spending on the infra, on the real estate, right? There's a general demand. The economy is doing good. There are people who have disposable income. They want to buy real estate, right? We are fond, as Indians, we are fond of buying real estate. So I think you have a natural advantage.
But इसमें भी geographical expansion में कौन सी cities ने कौन सी geographies ने lead करा
Pan
था?
India. 2021-22 we had outgrown all the cities. We were there. We had a presence all in all the cities.
जब आप एक नई सिटी में जाते थे, what were the biggest challenges that you faced? Because वहाँ के suppliers अलग होते हैं, contractors अलग होते हैं.
In the calendar year 21, we had taken a decision that we're not going to keep selling somebody else's, right? We'll go. So of course, but we cannot roll it back immediately. You have a team, you have a dealer channel, you have a commitment towards the ecosystem. You also have an offtake agreement. So by then we started reversing it, where consciously started telling team that hey, it's going to take time, but we're not going to sell other brands. We're going to come with our own brands, right? So we formed a very dense supply chain team. Started working on fixing the supply chain. Started working on closing on the manufacturing and the technology parts what we bring in, and it's still date we are doing it. So it's 2 years, but we are still working through it. In some categories we have cracked it. In some categories we are still scratching the surface, yet to crack it. Something are yet to come, right? So it's a very long drawn process of fixing of the manufacturing and supply chain. But I think by then we have taken a call.
सबसे पहली कैटेगरी कौन सी थी जिसमें आपने
Concrete.
own manufacturing और फिर contract manufacturing करा था?
We largely it's a blend of both. We have our we have RDC has its own plants. InfraMarket Concrete also has its own has a lease supply. It's blend of both. Second category was AEC blocks where we have come with our own manufacturing units. We acquired Shalimar Paints because it's a century-old brand having a great market equity. We thought we can do a lot with that product categories, right? And it had 3 manufacturing units. We started looking into multiple more tiles, bath fittings. We have a lot of tie-up right from the Morbi, where we are leasing out the entire capacities and rolling out in our own product categories. So I think that's we kept evolving on each of the product categories, kept improvising, started working on the QC R&D, multiple things.
And Feb 21, Feb 21, $1 billion, and then August, $2.5 billion. कितनी देर में deal close करी थी
So I
आपने?
think that round was not as epic as this was. This was slightly larger time. But again, because we had delivered, right? We had delivered certain numbers, which was a subtle promise between us. I think that time Tiger took another leap of faith in, in overwhelming us with a larger valuation.
There was one of the most stressful situation which felt like a near-death experience for InfraMart when the Central Bureau of Direct Taxes came with a sudden thing. One night you wake up and things happen. What was your state of mind? How did you manage to get out of this situation?
Yeah, I think that had been one of the greatest learnings I would say on the infra market side, as in the need to have top quality of processes, to have the top quality of governance is when we realized. I think we were so overwhelmed by the growth itself that we tend to overlook at multiple things. The processes did not lag. The processes couldn't cope up with the way company coped up, right? आपकी कंपनी ग्रो हो रही थी 5x year on year, बट आप प्रोसेसेस पे उतना ध्यान ही नहीं दे पाए. आप टीम बिल्डिंग पे, आप राइट प्रैक्टिस पे उतना ध्यान ही नहीं दे पाए, and of course then you had to face the heat of it.
Tell me what exactly happened on that day. What were you doing? When did you hear the news and what was happening?
It cannot be summed. It was not a linear way that कि it happened, ये हुआ फिर ये हुआ. I think it was just everywhere, right? At that point of time. At that point of time, we ourselves were clueless of what it was happening. It took nearly a week for it to dawn on us what has exactly happened. And I think over there, the first thing that we got into was disaster management. So did we really get time to think through it, live through it? No, it was disaster management because now we were on the unicorn startups where this has happened. It was all over in the newspaper. You would not believe it. We had 93 newspaper articles writing articles on us, right? So as I told you, that is what you get, right? These are the same guys who. So that's the ecosystem. You have to live with it, right? So we realized the pressure of it was mounting. Everybody had their own versions of it, right? Everyone had their own comprehension to what has happened, how has happened, how it could be a bubble, multiple things. We have to first protect our stakeholders. There were internal stakeholders. I had employees. I had a leadership team where Shravik and I had to go and answer. We had conference room where the leadership team was there and we stood up and said we are open to all questions, right? Because we are answerable to them. What is happening in the company? Why it has happened? Where have we gone wrong? The employees were completely demoted. Multiple, all hands, multiple, stand-ups, multiple things. We had to do it, right? Because we have to win back the trust. As I told you, it's all about trust, right? People have to believe in you as a leader. People have to believe in your dreams. You have to think they have to live your dream thinking is their dream, and it all starts with the trust. So like all the trust that we would have built had a huge dent. That was internal. External, you had equity shareholders, right? You had banks. Our way through it then and even now is keep performing.
You mentioned that you learned a lot of things from Shovik. Tell me three things that the most important things that you learned from your co-founder.
The first thing that comes to my mind is to let go, right? I think he has a brilliant habit where he can actually let go. Two is in fact I think people think that I'm extremely perseverant in my work, which I am. I'm not. I can't give up. I keep working through it, right? I think Shobik is people. He's an introvert by nature, right? Even in the organization, still there are many people who would not interact with him, right? I think he by that he is. So people who know him know that he's an introvert. He has a very small circle. He doesn't make a lot of public appearance. You will not see him anywhere, even to the employees or the stakeholders or the leadership team. It's
Office to aate?
office आता है, right? The communication goes through me. He is more faced to the outer world, which is investors, banking community everywhere. But what I've seen through it is his perseverance is even larger than me, right? I've seen him holding torch where even there have been times where I would have collapsed, I would have given up, but he wouldn't. So I think if anybody thinks that I am perseverant, hardworking, anything, all I can tell you is that Shobik is tad above me, right? So that's what I look up to him.
You mentioned a couple of times that this is the darkest industry. Why do you say what makes it the darkest industry?
When I say it's the darkest industry, it is from a reference point. I think it is relatively darker to other startup worlds. I don't mean to say that the industry is in dark itself. I don't mean to say that. So when you compare to a typical startup world, right, building material is a dark space, right? It's extremely rudimentary. It's brick and mortar.
आपने एक बहुत बार बोला था you work like donkey years doing sales. अगर हमने आपसे सेल्स नहीं सीखी तो कुछ भी नहीं सीखा. आज आप कि जो जितने भी सारे सेल्स के लोग हैं किसी भी एक हार्डेस्ट डील को क्रैक करने के लिए सेल करने के लिए what are some 3 or 4 things that you teach them?
So I have not addressed my sales team a lot. My typical address, I address the leadership team and their L-1. But I think what I would tell you is that to become a good salesman, first thing and the most important thing is that you have to understand what your client needs. You cannot sell him what you want to sell him. So please don't try that. I think if you empathize with your customer, if you seriously try to understand what he needs, but there would be many times where he himself doesn't know what he needs. He thinks he needs product A, but actually his requirement is product B. The more you will be empathized, the more you will be transparent, the more you will be real to him, right? You will win the customer and you will win a loyal customer for way longer, right? And I think you have to understand that sales is a much longer term process. It's not about meeting your targets month on month. It's about brewing relationships which can help you achieve targets for years to come in your career.
How are you planning the future? How do you see InfraMarket in next 5 years? What are you chasing?
I think what we are chasing is very simple thing: density and leadership position in each of the vertical. If not leadership, a significant market position. I don't judge my performance on the cumulative performance. Okay, hey, I'm a 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 crore revenue company or X EBITDA company or a Y profit. I'm saying is what am I achieving in each of the product categories? If in plywood MDF, as a consumer, you should know me. Do you know Century Ply?
I know.
You would have never bought plywood, but you know him, right? So my point is that you as a consumer, despite not buying it, knows all these brands because of the displacement they've brought in that category. So unless we don't build that trust across all categories,
कैसे बनाओगे वो ट्रस्ट आप?
I think it's a matter of time. Great products, right pricing, good quality, good service.
अभी आप IPO के लिए कैसे प्लानिंग कर रहे हो?
It's far away. It's not in the near future.
Okay. When do you think you will go for IPO? What's the right time?
I think there is no right time. It's about the business performance. But I still think that in the next few years we should be ready for it.
Got it. What's on your bucket list right now?
Personally, I think if InfraMarket doesn't drain me out enough, then the only thing that I aspire is to spend time with my daughters. I have 2 daughters, 6 and 3. They have been growing up. I just don't know how did this. My elder daughter Zoya, then how did she grow up? I don't remember. Right. So I think that's the only place where I see myself giving more family time. I still stay with my parents. We all stay together. So it's a great place to be at. So I think if it's not InfraMarket, It's only and only my time with my family and my closed circle, the inner circle that you have, social. That's the only thing that excites me.
अभी आपकी लाइफ में एंड बिजनेस में व्हाट्स द बिगेस्ट चैलेंज दैट यू आर फेसिंग?
I think to us, the largest challenge still remains is setting up the manufacturing units. I think we do not come from that background, right? We are not a second generation of businesses, right? We don't come from technical background. None of us come from mechanical background or electrical background. Understanding the right technology, understanding the right machinery, setting it up such large factories, getting the production out is the largest challenge I feel for us, right? For a lot of business owners, this comes to them naturally because they've been doing it for a very long time, right? And they had a background. Somebody in their family would have done it before, right? Or many of them could have also been first-time doers, right? Then I have very high respect for them. I think for us also that, as in understanding the right technology, the right machinery, the setup of it, where, how, right? Because we are going really wide. That mistake will not be able, we are not able to, we will never be, anybody who makes that mistake on that, you will not be able to undo it because your factory is going to be there for next 10, 15, 20 years. If you do a mistake, you're going to pay it for next multiple years.
इनफैक्ट येस्टरडे हम इंडिगो पेंट्स के सब कर रहे थे, स्मॉल कंपनी 150 करोड़ प्रॉफिट, 1000 करोड़ रेवेन्यू बेस्ड आउट ऑफ पुणे. सेम चीज उन्होंने बोली कि उनकी जो सबसे बड़ी इवेंट बैंकरप्ट बिफोर स्टार्टिंग दिस, सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम हुई थी गलत मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेटअप लगा. सब कुछ अच्छा चल रहा था, एक गलत मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेटअप ने गलत मशीन खरीद. वो यू शुड मीट हिम देन बिकॉज ही हैज अ लॉट ऑफ लर्निंग्स. तो उन्होंने एक जो चीज सीखी थी कि कभी भी हम बिना मशीन को हम उससे पूछते कि आपने कहाँ का मशीन लगाई, एंड देन वी विजिट दोस प्लांट्स, देन वी सी दैट कि ये वर्क करती है क्या, एंड वी विजिट द कॉम्पिटिटर्स. एशियन हर जगह जाते हैं, बर्जर पेंट से जाते हैं, एशियन पेंट जाते हैं, वी अंडरस्टैंड कि मशीन कैसी थी, एंड देन दे अप्लाई. सो दैट वुड बी अ ह्यूज, आई शेयर दैट कपल ऑफ लर्निंग्स फॉर दैट. थैंक्स अ लॉट फॉर बीइंग जनरस फॉर योर टाइम. आई एम रियली ग्रेटफुल.